Okay, welcome everyone to this security briefing. I think it's it's been 18 months that we do this briefing to provide an exclusive and unique opportunity to understand what's happening here in Israel, in the Middle East. It's not easy to understand. The media is spreading a lot of information, social media, other part of information. So we try to bring the best experts that have knowledge from their experience, from where they are based and their research on exactly what's happening here in Israel with different enemies that we have. So I was so glad today to have first Aryeh Lightstone, who served as a senior advisor to the US ambassador in Israel in the Trump administration, the previous one, special envoy also in innovation in the Middle East, and an expert in what's happening here in the American politics that is impacting so deeply the relationship between the countries in the region. So thank you, Aryeh, for being here today. We've also Sarit Zehavi, that you all know in our webinars and our briefing. It's not our first time with us, but she's the #1 expert on the northern border. Each time that we have Sarit with us, we learn more about what's happening in the north. And I think this today, the largest front in Israel. We don't forget the hostages that are in Gaza, and we still have a front in Gaza, still have Israeli battalions fighting every day in Jabalia and other places, because Hamas tried to still continue to build their facilities and different networks to continue fighting against Israel. We have a new guest that we never had before, and we're very glad to have you, Shir, one of the top experts in counterterrorism in Israel, understanding deeply the relationship of Iran, the proxies of Iran across the Middle East. So it will be great also to hear from you a bit later about what's happening with Iran, which is the big enemy that is spreading really hatred across the Middle East. So I would like to start with you, Aryeh. Since we had elections in the US and we see a change of the administration, we already see a change of the behavior of some of the country, of things that are happening in the ground, and it's really impacting the war in Israel. So what do you see since Trump won the elections, and where we go from here these days?
Okay, first of all, Sacha, thank you so much for having me. For everybody who's watching and listening, thank you so much for spending part of your day or afternoon or evening with us. I can't tell you how excited I am to hear Sarit and Shir. I mean, true experts on this. So I'm looking forward to being educated on these issues. So Sacha, you're asking a great question, and there's something interesting about U.S. politics. We have an election in November, but there's no change of power until January. And what you have right now is a gray zone where you have a president who is president, but he's very much a lame duck. And you have a president who, in our lifetime, we haven't had this before, is not going to have training wheels when he shows up on the first day. He was there 4 years ago. He knows where the bathroom is. He knows where the Situation Room is. He knows many, if not all, of the levers of the United States of America, what works and what doesn't. And frankly, in the Middle East, he knows almost all of the players. So all of that is the case. Now, what is different, and I'd like to make this point crystal clear, I have many disagreements with how the Biden administration conducted foreign policy. But before you get into any of the details of the disagreements, there is a fundamental flaw in how they showed up to do business. And what I mean by that is that they showed up on the first day in the Middle East as though there never was a Trump administration. They showed up as though it was January 20th, 2017, instead of January 20th, 2021. And I would just encourage everybody who will be leading the Trump administration for the Middle East, do not show up as though it is January 20th, 2021. It's January 20th, 2025. And the world is meaningfully different in these 4 years. And you could be excused if you are a business person or a philanthropist and you want to make decisions based upon your last trip to the region 4 years ago. It is inexcusable as the leader of the free world to make decisions based upon prior information and not based upon current information. And therefore, I think we're looking at a administration who will come in powerfully and with strong leadership and create an enormous amount of direction. But what that direction is and where that leadership goes should be, as they say, mark to market. It should be current based upon the information that we have now in 2024, 2025. And what Sarit will tell you, and Jared Kushner tweeted about this now 9 weeks ago, the Middle East is inherently different. Hamas in Gaza is degraded meaningfully. That doesn't discount the brave soldiers who are fighting there. It certainly does not discount the hostages and their families who are suffering unimaginable pain. But Hamas is not the threat that it was 14 months ago, 18 months ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And what you're looking at in Lebanon also, and we'll hear in much greater depth from Sarit, Hezbollah is not the same Hezbollah that Hezbollah was. And that also changes a lot of the facts on the ground. What is different, though, Iran is far wealthier than it was 4 years ago. The Houthis are far more powerful than they were 4 years ago. What's happening in Syria and parts of Iraq is far more dangerous than it was 4 years ago. And we can't just walk in and assume things were status quo. Things have changed in many different parts of the region. That's all sort of setting the stage. And I'm sorry for going so long on this. One of the things that I think is critically important for all of our allies and all of our enemies around the world. This is a challenging time in between administrations. We've seen what has happened, and this happens every 4 years, how things change over. I would just say this is a unique moment where the president-elect of the United States of America is watching very carefully and knows exactly how he will react to those actions. And I think whether it's the Russia-Ukraine war, China on the march, certainly what's happening in Israel with Iran, Israel, and all of the Iranian proxies, I think that there's much greater fear, or at least respect, for what President Trump can and will do on January 20th, as opposed to, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, which may have been some of the thoughts leading into the first Trump administration.
I would like to ask you a second question. I think that one of the countries that didn't stop the flights since October 7 was Dubai. The Emirates, the flight continue, and I think the Abraham Accords, where you have been deeply involved, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, has been extremely successful, since one of the Muslim countries in the region continued to fly with Israel. And last week we had a delegation of our organization from the Command Anti-Semitism that went to build some interfaith relationship in Dubai, and they told me I feel more safe in Dubai than in the street of America. And I love to hear your thoughts a little bit about what is the role that you're going to see of the Abraham Accords coming, and what you expect world leaders to do to support them to continue as the way that you have built it, and you have been a part of those that build it these days. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I'll say two things. Number one is I'm the CEO of a company called the Abraham Accord Peace Institute. If you want to see what has happened over the last 4 years in terms of the Abraham Accords, go to our website, Abraham Accord Peace Institute, and you'll see all of the metrics that are used to record how the peace is going. It's not just the flights, although the flights are important. The economic trade, the economic value, the intelligence sharing, the security sharing has been completely and totally game-changing. And by the way, meaningful rewards for those countries that were involved as well. The Emiratis look at this and say, wow, we're able to provide direct aid to the Gazans in Gaza because we work with the IDF. The Moroccans are able to provide direct aid to the Gazans in Gaza because they work with Israel. And that, for all of the champions of the Palestinian people, the people have been able to deliver meaningful results to civilians in Gaza have been the countries involved with the Abraham Accords, the Kingdom of Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and Morocco. And trade has continued to grow. That part is wonderful. Here is the ingredients for continued expansion of peace in the Middle East. Number one is Iran must be put back in their box. And Iran is the greatest purveyor of evil in the region and perhaps in the world. And President Trump knows that, understands that, and I believe will practice foreign policy based upon that theory. It's not a theory, based upon that fact. The second is, and this is very, very important, and I would encourage all people of influence to work on this. It's incredibly important that the United States of America presents an American foreign policy, not a Republican foreign policy, not a Democratic foreign policy, because America's adversary and the West's adversary is the unholy triumvirate of Russia, China, and Iran. Now, the advantage, and I use that word very carefully, of a relationship with Russia, China, and Iran is one that you can bet what their policies will be in 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, and 30 years from now, and you can make plans based upon that information if you are any of the other countries in the region. The United States of America, which is the greatest force for good likely in the history of the world, if we keep changing our policies every 4 years, it's very hard to develop your policies to align with our policies. And therefore, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to in the Trump administration, with his nomination of Tulsi Gabbard, with J.D. Vance, with the broad coalition that he's bringing to the table, winning the popular vote, winning the electoral college by a large amount, is people are not going to say this is a fringe. People are not going to say this is an exception. I believe people are going to say this is an American policy, and that American policy will stand against Iran. It will stand with our allies, and it will generate a meaningful, what we call peace dividend for countries who join the circle of peace. I would anticipate that many other countries will join the Abraham Accords 2.0 because they will want to stand in the circle with the United States of America. But the only way that they'll wind up doing that is if they believe that this is an American policy that will last past 4 years. And I think that's part of what Trump's victory is signaling to our allies and, frankly, our enemies around the world.
Yes, sorry. I was on mute, and thank you very much, Aryeh. I know that you have a flight to catch and to go back to the Holy Land, so we'll let you go. But I think that one of the things that we have seen is the relationship that the Middle East has created between Israel and the Emirates and other countries that shows that we can fight back hatreds. And when we see what's happening on campuses with Muslim kids harassing Jewish kids, and we see that Jewish kids feel more safe in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, then at the NYU, we know that there is a problem. But if we can export the peace that we have created here to the rest of the world, we can make a big change. So thank you for what you said. Yeah.
If you'll allow me just to weigh in on one more thing, because I want to speak about the value of CAM and what you're doing there, but it's also the value of leadership. In the UAE, they've decided that they will not allow these types of protests. In Saudi Arabia, they've decided they will not allow these types of protests. There's a difference in between freedoms and respect for others' people. And in America, I think that you're exactly correct. It is safer for me to walk around in Saudi Arabia with the kippah on today than it is to walk on many of our Ivy League college campuses. The recipe for peace starts with respect and security, and then it moves on to peace. And I'm optimistic that we'll get there.
Thank you, Aryeh. That's inspiring. But I think that there is a solution at the end, and we can learn from what's happening here in the Middle East. So thank you very much. I would like to invite, and by the way, Aryeh Lightstone is an advisory board member of the Common Anti-Semitism movement, and we're glad to be helped to work with you. So Aryeh, thank you very much. So I'd like to invite Sarit Zehavi, which we introduced a bit before. She's an expert, like the best one in the North. And only yesterday night, I believe, it was 2 days ago, we forgot exactly the timeline, but 8 p.m. here in Israel, I was sitting in a similar situation in a Zoom call, and we had the rockets alert again, sounding all over the center of Israel. Another rocket. We took our kids that were asleep from their bed to the bomb shelter. And it's kind of feel that nothing is moving in the north. And I would love to hear, like, we have rockets arriving in Tel Aviv. We have rockets all over the country, Haifa, the north, the Galilee, the Golan Heights. Like, what's happening in your region that Hezbollah still seems to be strong at this stage, why they lost their leadership? And I think that we spoke about previously about Nasser Nasrallah that was killing many of the leaders. So love to hear like where it stands, because the northern border, it's deep, it's hard, and Israel is fighting very hard there. So love to hear kind of a situation of what's happening there.
I would say a few points. First, I don't know how much time you have in the center of Israel to get to the bomb shelter. I have 15 seconds.
I have 1 minute, 19, so I have 19 seconds.
This is basically the difference between sending the kids to school and not sending them to school, having them going only to school with the classrooms that are in shelters. It means that my daughter, for example, can go to school only twice a week because not all the classrooms are safe, and we don't have enough classrooms that are in bomb shelters. This is just a small example. Afternoon activities are cancelled in most cases, again, especially if we cannot have them inside the bomb shelters. I'm afraid to send them to send her to walk to her friend, because it's, I don't know if the alerts will be yesterday when I was on my way from Tefen, 5 minutes away. I got the alerts on my way home, and it's scary because Iron Dome would not intercept rockets that are about to fall in open areas, and the roads here between one town to another are considered open areas, and we don't always hear the sirens. I didn't hear the sirens yesterday. I just saw the interceptions above my head. This is the reality here in the past year. It is becoming worse since June, and it is becoming even worse since the IDF offensive with regard to the rocket shooting. And I think when you ask me what's the situation like today, there is a contradiction between the achievements of the IDF on the ground, the fact that IDF truly succeeded in getting Hezbollah, and as Aryeh said, to a completely different situation, completely degraded. It's not the same organization. It doesn't pose a strategic threat to the state of Israel anymore with regard to the amount of rockets. Most of them were eliminated. It also was pushed away from the border in a sense that it cannot carry out an invasion October 7th style anymore. We cannot overrule infiltration of one or two terrorists, but this is a scenario that can happen anywhere in Israel. It doesn't matter. So what's the problem? Okay, and the problem lies in two things. First, even though most of the rockets of Hezbollah were eliminated, there are still a few thousand that are there because Hezbollah had tens of thousands of rockets and some of them were left. The trend that we see in the past 2 months since the offensive started, and definitely in the past month, is that Hezbollah is using more heavy rockets that create more damages. I can share with you something that we published yesterday, and you can see a little bit, get the impression of a little bit of the trends of shooting of drones and rockets, and you can see that in the past month we only had about 500 incidents of rockets that were launched to Israel.
Only have
500 projectiles that were launched to Israel. But we did have a raise in the amount of UAVs, which are very problematic and challenging with regard to our aerial defense systems. This is to Haifa. The amounts that you're looking at are the amounts of rockets to Haifa area. It doesn't include the amounts of rockets to elsewhere in the north. Like we had a fall of 2 rockets in the same building in Kiryat Shmona today. It is evacuated. How can we bring the people back home if they don't have safe room and there is rockets every day? So basically what you see here is kind of a little bit ups and downs, but kind of a stable situation of daily attacks against Israel's north with rockets, with all the achievements of the IDF that nobody here denies, that everybody respect, and really impressive achievements, okay? The second point I want to make is, which is even bigger, is how the day after would look like, how the agreement would look like, because we are saying, okay, we got the terrorists away from the fence, we degraded the amount of rockets. These are amazing military achievements. We had killed more than 170 Hezbollah military commanders and leaders. Can they recover? Will they recover? So it looks like Iran is completely committed to the recovery of Hezbollah, which was not obvious at the first few days right after the elimination of Nasrallah. It was a question for me. What would be the choice of Iran? And it looks like Iran made its choice. And Iran is involved, boots on the ground. There is somebody who is running the business with all the command and control issues that we caused to Hezbollah. And this somebody is the Iranians, it's the IRGC, they are there, they are involved.
Sarit, you really see the
That's
Iranians.
why the agreement is a problem.
But you really see Iranian soldiers actually in Lebanon these days, or it's an assumption that we see them?
I can say we have too many reports that are saying that.
Okay,
I'll
so
put
we
it
see.
this way.
Thank you.
That's one thing. And second, as we speak, Amos Hochstein, the special envoy of the US, is visiting the area trying to reach an agreement. What's the problem with an agreement? I hope there will be an agreement. By the way, I hope there will be an agreement in the south as well that will bring the hostages back. But the very basic and thorough gap is that both terrorist organizations are interested in an agreement now, in a ceasefire, Hezbollah and Hamas. After they were damaged that deeply, they naturally want an agreement. The biggest question is what kind of agreement? Okay, Israel wants an agreement that will not allow the terrorist organizations to recover, whether in Gaza or in Lebanon. These two terrorist organizations want an agreement that will enable them to recover. And that's it. That's the key to understand what's happening here. Amos Hochstein is trying to walk between the drops and to create an agreement with a monitoring mechanism that Hezbollah will accept and Israel will accept. But Israel wanted to be effective and Hezbollah wanted to be ineffective, or Iran.
Like we have with the 1701 resolution
in
of the UN.
1701. Yeah,
1701.
Just before I came on air here, I was reading Unifil's statement on Twitter today. I don't know if you've seen this. This is truly unbelievable. They published a statement that described hits of rockets and attacks against Unifil positions in South Lebanon that were clearly attacks of Hezbollah, and they just can't pronounce the word Hezbollah. They are saying that these were attacks that were caused by non-state players in Lebanon. What non-state players in Lebanon? This is Hezbollah.
I will take the opportunity just about Unifil. We made a report, I think, 2 weeks ago, about Unifil communication online on X, especially Twitter, the former Twitter. And we analyzed all the tweets they made since October 7. Not one time they used the word Hezbollah. So they didn't even recognize that Hezbollah is there. So I will put that in the chat if you're interested to read. And that's an international organization supported by global funding. So it's interesting that they are there to not allow Hezbollah to expand, and they don't even mention it like it doesn't exist.
So I can bet that even if you take not the past year, but the past 18 years, you will have very few times that Unifil actually mentioned Hezbollah in its reports, and even fewer that it mentioned Hezbollah in its reports, not as a quotation of Israeli officials. And that's part of the problem. And yet, eventually, Unifil is not the problem, okay? The problem is the state of Lebanon. We tend to differentiate Hezbollah from the state of Lebanon. It's very comfortable for everybody to do it. But I think that as long as we are doing that, we are not going to get a true solution, because Hezbollah is a member of the Lebanese government, officially, not beneath the surface. The minister in Lebanon, the transportation minister, who is responsible for all the exits and entrances to Lebanon, including Hariri Airport and the border crossings with Syria, is an official Hezbollah member. As long as he is part of this government, how can we expect this government to stop the smuggling of weapons into Lebanon, into Hezbollah?
Yeah. I have a question that kind of struck me. In many briefings that we did so far with you, a lot of the conversation were about tactical issues and the operation, really what's happening. I think it's the first time that we hear you really speaking about the next stage. Does it look like we are approaching the end also with the special envoy here in Israel? You feel that we're going to have an agreement recently, like in the near future?
Look, I will be very careful. On the one hand, we see negotiations, we see military achievements that we didn't see up until 2 months ago. We see IDF boots on the ground and a lot of destruction in South Lebanon in a way that truly eliminated the capability of Erdogan to carry out an invasion, a situation that we didn't have up until 2 months ago. I didn't sleep at night up until 2 months ago, afraid that something huge will happen and change dramatically my security situation as a resident of the North. My security situation changed. It deteriorated in a sense that we do have much more rockets, but at the same time, I'm not afraid anymore that the terrorists will come to my living room. And this is crucial to understand the different feelings here. So there are advanced negotiations. I truly pray that they will succeed. But to tell you the truth, after the experience with Gaza, I cannot give you an evaluation now of how long this is going to take. Hezbollah and Hamas and the Iranians, actually, they are a piece of art with negotiations and with saying, yes, we agree to the American proposal, but, and behind this but, it's actually, no, we disagree with the American proposal. And it's negotiations, it's still going on. It's not over till it's over.
Maybe we have 2 more minutes and we have our next speaker, so we can be on time. We have approximately still 60,000, between 60,000 and 40,000 displaced families that I think they left in the past 18 months their home. I don't know if you can imagine how long they couldn't live in their cities, in their village. Wherever they are, kids have been displaced. Do you see these families coming back these days, or are we still in a position that is impossible for just normal Israeli civilians to go back where they should be in their home? So what do you see these days? If you can answer in 1 minute, it will be great.
Above 60,000 Israelis in 43 communities are officially evacuated. Very few came back. This is what I can say. And once the government will stop the compensation, much more will come back since they have no choice. They miss home. They want to come back. People want to come back and rebuild the Galley. We all love the Galley. I chose to live in the Galley, but we need security. And if women will be afraid that their daughters will be raped by Hezbollah terrorists, which they will see on the other side of the border from the kitchen window, they will not come back.
Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do, and thank you very much for this update, Sarit.
Thank you.
And you can stay if we have more questions at the end. I don't know how long we're going to have after Shir, and we're going to try to end on time. I have already a question. If we'll make the recording available, yes, it will be available. So we're going to send it out to everyone at register and on our website at combatantisemitism.org. So we have Shir Moore. She's an expert like on counterterrorism, Iran research, with exceptional knowledge on everything that's happening here. And I think that one of the big parts that we see is the Iranian question. What's happening between Iran and Israel? And yes, like 3 weeks ago, Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, committed to retaliate once again to Israel after the attack that we did. And now we see also that he's probably pushing back. We have rumors that he died in Iran. That looks apparently fake. So can you tell us what's happening between Israel and Iran in your research and analysis, what we should expect to see, and how Iran is using its proxies to continue its war against Israel, and maybe even further down, how Iran is supporting anti-Semitism growing in America, and we see much more reports coming of Iran finance and support, financial support in demonstrations on campuses, on campus, and other places. So we love to hear from you, and you're an expert there. So now we're going to go more in the ideology of Iran and where they stand toward Israel. So thank you, Shir, for being with us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. Just 2 notes before I'm starting to answer. One, I'm also in the north of Israel. So in case I can completely relate to Sarit, I don't have 50 seconds. I'm supposed to have 1 minute, but it's actually less. And the second point is when I will referring to Iran, I will be actually referring to the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's very important for me personally to make this distinguish between the nation and the leadership. So about your question, let me just share my screen. Let me start with this quote that will allow us to understand something that just raised up a few days ago. So Israel retaliated against Iran on October 26th. And this quote by Netanyahu a few days ago was a hint for a new target that Israel allegedly targeted, which was a component of a nuclear program. Up until now, what we knew was that Israel retaliated in Iran, mostly on ballistic missile sites and military bases. But a few days ago, a new report actually revealed that Israel also targeted a nuclear research facility for nuclear weapon. And it's called Taliban 2, and it's supposed to be near Tehran. But let's talk about why is it important for us to understand. When Iran is constantly denying the fact that they are trying to reach nuclear weapon and only demanding and only claiming they want a nuclear for energy purposes and for research purposes, we can see that this is a hint that not only that that Israel is blaming them for this, but also they had a facility research designed to create nuclear weapons. And what's more interesting is that they're actually prohibited in Iran. It's prohibited to develop nuclear weapon according to Ali Khamenei fatwa from 2003. And you can see Kamal Kharazi actually addressed it a few days ago, and he mentioned that they are capable of doing this. They're capable of developing nuclear weapon according to what they already have, but they're not doing it only because of this fatwa that they had from Khamenei. But pay attention what they're saying. They're saying not only the capabilities there, but also the intention, because they're literally saying that if Iran feels like they're under threat, they will be reconsidering to change this fatwa and perhaps also developing nuclear weapon. Everything, of course, is very vague when we're talking about Iran, because we know they're saying one thing and doing the exact opposite eventually. It's been revealed in multiple reports and intelligence over the years, but this is also a very important strategic point for Israel. Israel has constantly said that we won't allow Iran to become nuclear. But we're seeing even now with the new recent IAEA visit in Tehran that they are exceeding regulations. And look what the IAEA is saying. They're saying that they're optimistic about Iran coming to negotiate it. But eventually Iran is threatening back. So they're optimistic about them, but Iran is threatening Europe and the international community. Don't pose sanction on us. Otherwise, you will get the consequences. So Iran is not afraid to target and to accuse and threat people. And when I'm saying people, I mean, of course, countries. We've seen it also after the True Promise, after the second True Promise, when Israel retaliated and they said, we will strike other Gulf countries, other countries in other areas, not only Israel. So let's dive back into your question. We've seen a lot of threats coming from the Islamic Republic over the past 2 months or a month or a half or so. When the elections in the U.S. became more relevant, they decreased the amount of threats. When Trump was elected, it was a bit of change in scenery, but now they're back in threatening. They're threatening multiple accounts by the leaders of Iran. By, of course, Ali Khamenei himself will open an X account, especially in Hebrew, just to target and to threat Israelis in their own language. But also, we've seen a new, maybe not new, but relatively new scene, which is Iraq. Iraq is constantly attacking Israel. When I'm saying Iraq, I'm talking about the pro-Iranian militias in Iraq. They're striking Israel, especially with UAVs. They're causing casualties in Israel, and it became a daily routine, unfortunately. But now, not only that we're not talking about this anymore, but we're talking about the possibility that Iran might use Iraq as their launching site for True Promise 3, which is the third operation that Iran is planning to attack Israel by. So only yesterday, the Israeli Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gidon Saar, launched a letter to the UN demanding that they will stop those actions from Iraq territory. Otherwise, he said, Israel will have the every right to defend itself. The US warned them, everyone are involved, but eventually the strikes continue. And not only this, but we see that there are all kinds of multiple reports that are not 100% verified, of course, but reports that it might be major scene in conducting this new operation. Of course, we also have the possibility to have direct strike from Iran's territory. Again, terrorist attack on Jewish communities abroad, everything that we're already used to, unfortunately. So this is the main aspect when we're talking about True Promise 3. It will happen somehow, because when they're promising, they're usually delivering. Iran is not the one to just threat without any proving of action. So it is very likely they will retaliate.
So you expect
also, if it's
no, that's as an Israeli citizen, when I hear that, I'm kind of okay. I need to be ready again. This will be the third time. It's not easy just to hear that. So yeah, thank you. Yes, please.
No, it's actually very true, and I will I would also address it. Sarit already explained about this. I'm not going to dive deep into this Hezbollah ceasefire pressure, but I can just agree with her. And I will just say this: Iran never gave up on Hezbollah. They're their number one proxy. So they've been nurturing them for decades. They've been paying billions of dollars, training, everything they needed is there. So Hezbollah is actually Iran, and they're not giving up. So now the pressure from Iran to seize the fire, even though they have a lot of conditions, it's not like they're saying, okay, let's just seize the fire. Of course not. But overall, they want to try to rebuild the organization because they need it, because they rely on it, and because they invested so much up until now that they won't be able to just give it away, especially with the nuclear issues that we mentioned that are rising. They need this proof. They need this organization to do the dirty work for them, because this is what they expected this entire time. They didn't expect this retaliation from Israel, this offensive from the IDF towards Hezbollah. They didn't expect it at all, but personally, as an Israeli, as you mentioned, I'm glad it happened because it should have happened even earlier. It's again, as a citizen, I'm saying this: the North has been suffering for a lot of time now, and it's been very hard, over a year actually, and we should definitely it's a definitely important thing that the IDF did this offensive. Of course, they have to reconsider a lot of nuances and to be very aware of what their targets and strategic points are. But overall, they should have struck, and Iran didn't see it coming, at least not in the shape that it did eventually. And I would just want to also address, if it's okay, on just by point. Something that came up in Israel recently, a spy network by Iran that was, it's important to understand, Iran is not only targeting us by proxies, they are trying multiple fronts. So one of the fronts is inside Israel, with Israelis working for them. So we've seen three major aspects. We've seen the intelligence gathering. They're sending Israelis to take pictures of all kinds of sites, infrastructures just for their own gathering. We've seen political impact. They've been trying to, allegedly, of course, everything is still under investigation, to recruit people for demonstrating against political figures and spraying graffitis across streets just to make spark a political debate, and also direct actions. It's been reported that they've been trying to target Israeli figures, including scientists, for example, set cars on fire. And the last part, which is important, it's very, very recent. And I think this is very important just to even mention it by the title. They were involved, according to the ISGAP report, they've been involved in the ICJ genocide case of South Africa against Israel. So we see also globally they're involved. So we see the proxy, we see the inside influence, and we're seeing the global influence overall. So even without diving into details, because it's not the main point, but we have to understand that Iran is there, is here, is everywhere, not only by the proxies in the Middle East, which we are already aware it's an octopus. They're everywhere. Everywhere you set your finger on in a map in the Middle East, they're there somehow in some kind of construction. But we see that their agenda and propaganda influences are also major, and they're very good in conducting psychological warfare, in threatening, in imposing fear. Even before the True Promise 1 and 2, they knew how to keep the Israelis tight, to make them wait for this attack. So overall, I think it's very important to understand that they're good at what they're doing. We shouldn't underestimate them at all, not by force, not by their capabilities of influencing. It doesn't mean that we're not capable of defending ourselves, not at all, but it always means that we have to be prepared to threats that are rising from their front.
Thank you so much, Shir, for this presentation, and as well. We have 4 more minutes, and I have one question I would love to ask for both of you and to hear your opinions. It seems to me deeply that any type of ceasefire agreement that we're going to do will not be effective if what you say, Shir, that Iran will not compromise on Hezbollah. They will find another way. We see now Hamas ideology itself. They will find another way. So shouldn't we stop playing the cards of the ceasefire agreement and go directly to Iran and just finish the job one and for all, and maybe waste our time as a society, a world global unity, or wherever we are, to go just for ceasefire with Hezbollah? It doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, no? What do you think, Sarit?
I will give you a few parts to my answer. First, we need a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire. We need to send the reservists home. We need to rebuild the Galilee and the Negev. We need to bring back the hostages. We have all the reasons for having this ceasefire. Yet we should not have any illusions. The ceasefire doesn't mean peace, and we will still have terrorists on our borders. And what is needed as an envelope, or right after or during the ceasefire, and bear in mind that what is now being offered with Lebanon is 60 days to give to Hezbollah time to go up above to the Litani River. This is the time to create an international coalition that will create a more thorough treatment to the problem, which I agree, the problem is something different. It derives from Tehran, and this is something that we should do together. Israel shouldn't be the one who will deal with this threat by itself. The second thing I want to mention is Lebanon. we should, again, create an international coalition that will make sure that there is a thorough change in the approach of the state of Lebanon to Hezbollah. I heard today that New Zealand just designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. It's the 30th country in the world that designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. We are still waiting for Lebanon to do the same thing. As long as Hezbollah is not designated as a terrorist organization in Lebanon itself, nothing will change. As I've said, it is still a legitimate party and a partner in the political structure of Lebanon.
Thank you, Sarit. And to Shir, and that's the last question of the day. I think that we haven't spoke about Hamas and Gaza enough today. And I love to hear your thoughts. So today we heard, I think that from this morning, a lot of reports about a possibility to have a private American firm to deal with the distribution of goods in Gaza and to start dealing with the security and kind of stopping international organization to be there, like UNRWA, that was totally corrupt and has been used by Hamas as a terror hub. So what do you think there in 2 minutes will be the end solution for us to accept in Israel?
When we're talking about Hamas, it's quite difficult and it's very complex. There is a reason why it's been so long and no one was able to pinpoint what needed to be done. Hamas is a power inside the Gaza Strip, but they're not only a power, but also the ideological power, meaning that even if you're diffusing some of the terrorists or all of them, to be said, kids have grown up learning that this is the right method, this is the right way, and it's not like this for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or a decade. It's been like this for a long, long time. So it's more about education, more about changing the ideology that is among the people in Gaza, the Palestinians. It's very, very hard because when you're talking about changing people's mind, when you're arriving to some point, it's becoming irrelevant. When you're arriving to certain age or certain time in your life, you're usually no longer available to change and shift your mind from what you already knew. So it's very hard because we need more than just operational or government or even army solutions. We need to have a method that will allow change of scenery inside the Gaza Strip, not only, by the way, but we're focusing on the Gaza Strip. We need something that will change the method of schools, the methods of everything that's involving kids, to be honest, because this is the root problem. You can't necessarily change people that are older. You can change them, but you can change the views of younger. So in my opinion, it's a bigger solution that needs to be done. We need to reconsider not only us, it's supposed to be, in my opinion, something more, a coalition, maybe some Arab countries. I know that some countries, such as the UAE, already offered it in some conditions that they will be there, not necessarily by force, but also by education and culture. We need to change the root cause, not only diffusing Hamas. We have to diffuse Hamas, but we don't.
Yeah, we're going to need to end, but I think to summarize what you said, we cannot let international organizations like the UN to let Hamas build and use the structure that is being financed by international aid and by countries. Like, we need to take a responsibility here to not let it happen again, and we need to learn from the past, from October 7, that if we don't control what's happening there, we're going to have deep problems because the ideology is there as well. So thank you very much, Shir. Shir is a member of the Forum Dvora, forum of women leaders that are shaping kind of global, I will say, I'm not sure, strategic mind and leadership within Israeli society. And by listening to you today, it seems that
Both of us are members of Forum Dvora.
It's doing a good job with a speaker like you. I saw that we have received more questions, and since I promised to be on time, I just put my email in the chat. So please send me the question and make sure that you get a detailed response. I would like to invite everyone also to follow Alma on social media. Go on Google or ChatGPT because they have a search center right now. Check for Alma, follow them on Twitter, X, and register to the newsletter. You're going to get very, very good report and information. It's a pleasure to have you today, and I would like just to hand. We do these reports and this briefing to help you getting more information on topics that we believe are important. But if you have any topics that you're interested to hear, please send us an email. You can go. You have my email here. So if you have an idea or topic that you feel that you are not informed enough and you want to be more educated, let us know, and we can do on demand a briefing based on issues and that you feel that you don't have enough knowledge about. So thank you very much to our speaker, to Aryeh that needed to leave. Shir, it was a pleasure. Your first time on our briefing, and Sarit, it's kind of a family conversation here. So thank you very much for knowledge, and please up in the notes, stay safe, and soon we hope to see a ceasefire for you to rest, and the future will let us guide where we're going to be. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening to us. The recording will be on our website, so don't hesitate to be on our website, combatantisemitism.org. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.